Terry and your host and teacher for today's broadcast. I believe God's word is practical and relevant to everyday life. Yes, even your life. I'm glad you tuned in today, and I hope you will be too.
Well, hi, everyone. We are here. Thank you for joining me, New Hope Radio. And the Hope Club podcast, we have that available for you on demand as well, anytime. Catch you driving to work, driving home, running errands, having lunch. Get the Word of God every day. I'll tell you what, it'll make a difference in your life, no doubt about it. We're currently walking with Moses through the Scriptures. And we've witnessed a few things so far. We talked about his birth. He was born, his mom hid him for 3 months, and then she put him in the Nile River in a basket. Pharaoh's daughter discovered him, gave him back to his mother to nurse him, and then she gave Moses back to Pharaoh's daughter. He was raised in the Pharaoh's house. Are you kidding me? Yes, he was. He was educated in the Egyptian ways. Very smart man, Moses was. One day he was out looking on the Hebrews and he saw an Egyptian taskmaster mistreating a Hebrew slave. And Moses went over and knocked him out. And he died. Uh-oh. Word got out. Moses ran to Midian. Hung out there for a while, met a girl, went to the movies, had a few dinners, they got married. So life is going along pretty good. And then it happened. It always happens, doesn't it? Don't you love it when God intervenes into your life? When God intervenes into your life, the beginning of a new chapter, the beginning of something better than what you had before. We need to remember that, okay? That when God intervenes, it's always something better. Keep that in mind. So that's what happened with Moses. With Moses, God intervened. And here's what happened. He's out pasturing the sheep, the goats, whatever he was watching. And he heard a voice come from a bush. The bush spoke to him. And Moses turned aside because this bush was burning. But it wasn't going out. It just kept burning and burning. And God said to Moses, "It's me. I'm the God of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob." And he said, "Moses, I have a mission for you. I want you to go back to Egypt and tell the Pharaoh, let my people go out into the wilderness to worship me." Now, Pharaoh said, no, they can't go. So God brought 10 plagues to change his mind. Wow. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 10. Sometimes you wonder, how much does it take to get through a guy's head? Well, for Pharaoh, it took 10. Now, this series is not about a verse-by-verse study of the Exodus or Moses, but we're looking at the highlights of his life as he walks with God and learns the ways of God. And it's similar to our life, isn't it? As we walk with God and learn the ways of God. So we find ourselves today in Exodus 14, where is the well-known Red Sea incident. I don't think there's anybody that hasn't heard of the Red Sea incident. And it teaches us that when it looks like there's no way out, God makes a way out. As the old song says, God will make a way when there seems to be no way. He works in ways we cannot see. Oh, he will make a way for me. That's a beautiful song because it packs a message that encourages us in God's care for us. So let's pick it up after the 10th plague, Exodus 14, verse 5. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, now they're going out into the wilderness because Pharaoh said, "Oh, that's it, I can't take any more, you can go." Pharaoh and his servants, they had a change of heart, the Bible says, toward the people. And they said, what is this we've done? That we have let Israel go from serving us. That was their labor force. What's wrong with us? So he made his chariot ready, and he took his people with him. Verse 6. Now this took place 3 days after the plagues of the Egyptians, when they lost the firstborn boy of each family. Moses asked Pharaoh if they could go out into the wilderness 3 days' journey. After the Red Sea incident, or at the Red Sea incident, we'll see that the world has a wrong impression about the power of God. And you know, God did these things to demonstrate his power. Later on, it was recorded. Remember when the Israelites attacked Jericho? And they found Rahab, and Rahab helped the spies. They said, why'd you help us? Oh, we heard about your God. Oh, we heard about the power of your God and what he did to the Egyptians. See, word spreads. God wants his power known. Because the power of God, well, it shows who he is, and he wants us on his side. So, God is greater than, I would say, anything else that exists. Okay? So, again, people have a wrong impression about God. Two things Pharaoh thought were in his favor. Number one, his mighty army. I mean, come on, these guys ran the world, right? They had a big army. So in verse 7 it says, he took 600 select chariots, and all the other chariots of Egypt with officers over them. So that was one problem, one mistake he made. He put his faith in his army. And secondly, he thought the Israelites, even though they numbered 600,000 men, that they were no match for his soldiers. They were slaves. They don't know how to fight. He figured, we got this wrapped up. And yeah, he was right. He was right. They didn't know how to fight, but he got his opponent wrong. His opponent wasn't the people of Israel. His opponent was God. That was his opponent. So in verse 3, Pharaoh will say of the sons of Israel, they're wandering aimlessly in the land. The wilderness has shut them in. In other words, there's no way out. They're trapped. We got them backed into a corner. Mountains on the sides, the sea in front of them. We're coming up from behind them. These guys, they are cornered, trapped like a rat. But God will make a way when there seems to be no way. Do you ever feel trapped like a rat? He works in ways we cannot see. Oh, he will make a way for me. See, if you ever felt trapped like a rat, backed into a corner, that corner is still no match for God. Why did God lead them this way? Why did he take them where they would be boxed in? Well, because in Exodus 13, it says, when the Pharaoh had let the people go, God didn't lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, even though it was closer. For God said, the people, they might change their minds and go back to Egypt. They might see war. They don't want to fight. These people don't want to fight. They see the Philistines, that massive army, they might turn around. So I'm not going to take them that way. Okay? So, though the land was promised by God, the promised land, right, Canaan land, they still had to enter into it with a fight. But here's what they were going to learn. God would fight for them. That was the lesson. Oh, that's the lesson the first generation did not learn. And that's why God had to wait for the second generation to grow up. All they had to have was a mind to fight. But God would do the fighting. And it appears that God is interested in people of strength. Not strength of body, strength of faith. Where are you stronger? In your body or in your faith? See, it wasn't the Israelites, but God that Pharaoh was going to face. Question. Do you know what God can do with a hard heart? Because that's what Pharaoh had. He can make it hotter. Oh yeah. It's like, you want a hot heart? Okay, I'll make it even hotter for you. How do you like that? In verse 8, the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Pharaoh chased after the sons of Israel as the sons of Israel were going out boldly. It's interesting. They started off boldly, but then they became chicken-hearted as they continued in the journey. So, Pharaoh is chasing the Israelites. He's catching up to them. And now the Israelites, like I said, they're getting chicken-hearted. They're frightened. Which ones became frightened? Which of the Israelites became frightened? You know who became frightened? The ones who saw the Nile River turn to blood. The one who saw the land overrun with frogs. The ones who saw boils on all the Egyptians. The ones who saw hail destroy the crops and darkness for 3 days. The ones who saw the firstborn of each Egyptian household die. These are the ones. Those Israelites, they were forgetful. They were forgetful of the power of God in all the things that God had just done 3 days earlier. See, forgetfulness and fear, they travel together. Oh yeah. Forgetfulness leads the way and says, come on, fear, hurry up. Come on. Fear says, I'm coming. Wait for me. And forgetful leads the way and fear comes right up behind. Because when you forget what God has done, fear moves in. It takes over. And what they did, they forgot the past. They forgot the harsh labor, the food shortage, the supply shortage to make the bricks. Remember, Pharaoh said, hey, you guys got that much time? Tell you what, go get your own straw. I'm not providing it anymore. They forgot the cruel taskmasters. Sometimes Christians are like that. They get tired of Christianity. They think they're missing something from the world. They get tired of maybe the challenge of the Christian life. I don't know, maybe they get offended, whatever. And they go back to the world. You know why they go back to the world? Because they forgot. They forgot what the world had done to them. How it chewed them up, and spit them out. How it took advantage of them. How it victimized them. How it didn't care a thing about them. That's what happens. That's why God's people go back. Because they have bad memories. And they forget. And that's what this first generation did. They forgot. And they wanted to go back to Egypt. Because they forgot how bad it really was. So the people complained to Moses, why couldn't you just let us die in Egypt? Why do we have to come out here to die? You know, there's always those that have a negative perspective of what's happening. Did you ever notice that? That's why we have that song, every party has a pooper. That's why we invited you. You know, there's always the negative perspective, and that's the one that puts the wet blanket on the fire. That's the one that shortchanges God, that doesn't give God an opportunity to move. Because they're so complaining and so critical. Then they said something that would destroy any nation. You know what they said in verse 12? Leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians. Do they hear what they're saying? Leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. Do you agree with that? Would you rather be a slave to a harsh taskmaster and live that way? Or give your life fighting for your freedom? I don't know about you, but I'd rather fight for my freedom. And if I die, I die. Give me liberty or give me death. Wasn't that the cry? And yet there are people today, they live like these Israelites. Give up their freedoms. And they get used to living like slaves. That's why Patrick Henry, he said, you know what? No, we're not doing this. And I'll fight against England. He said, we're not doing it. We're not going to be the pawns of England. We're not. We're going to fight for our freedom. And you know what? Either you give me liberty or you give me death. You kill me. Either one. But I will not live as a slave. So let's spiritualize it. Don't live as a slave to your sin. Fight for your freedom. God has provided all the resources for you. Fight for your freedom. You don't have to be in bondage to an addictive behavior. Fight for your freedom. You don't have to be a slave to drugs and alcohol and sexual immorality, pornography. Fight for your freedom. God has given you all the resources, and He will fight for you. See, I think we're living in a day and age when people frown upon that statement, give me liberty or give me death. They frown upon fighting for freedom because look at even in our own nation, we're becoming pawns. And I don't politicize here on this program, but we got to open our eyes too and see what's going on. How the government is infringing on the rights of people. Big time. Big time. Oh yeah. Yeah. You know, here in New England, I get down south, right? I go to Florida, and I walked into a clinic down there. I had a cold or something. Nobody's wearing a mask. Then I come back home, and I go to my eye doctor, and I have to wear a mask. I'm like, wait a minute. Nobody here is sick. We're just having our eyes examined. You go to your dentist. You know what they say? Sit in the car, and we'll call you when it's your turn. I'm like, what? The infringement on us is crazy. And it's going to get worse and worse. And we have to stand up and say, wait a minute, you know what? I am going to fight for my freedom. I will. And your most important freedom is your freedom in Jesus Christ. You fight for that. And you never give in where you can't share who Christ is with somebody. I know you can't do it at work if the work says, you know what, we don't want anybody proselyting at work. You respect that. But at the same time, there are times and places where you can deliver people from the darkness. You can bring them the light of Christ, and you can share that with them. Why? Because that's the freedom we have, and let's use that freedom. Let's use it. You know, in the Great Tribulation, there's going to be no freedom. The mark of the beast will be forced upon people, and those who refuse to get it, they're going to be put to death. And because it's going to be Satan's government, Satan's world. If you want a job, if you want money, if you want to buy, if you want to sell, if you want to rent a house, you want to buy a house, you got to have the mark of the beast. If you don't get this mark, then we will come looking for you, and we will kill you. And people are going to have to make a decision. Oh, do I want to live in the slavery of the Antichrist? Or do I want to die for Christ? And that's the question. That's the question. So in verse 13, Moses said to the people, Moses is a good leader. They're complaining, they're griping, they're criticizing him, but Moses says, do not fear. Don't be afraid. Moses knows something the people have yet to learn. And you know why Moses knows it? Because he spent time with God. Oh, there's the key. Spend time with God. Moses said, stand by and see the salvation of the Lord, the deliverance of the Lord, which He will accomplish for you today. He's saying, listen, just stop. God is going to do something for you. For the Egyptians, whom you have seen today, you will never see them again forever. Wow. So Moses gives them one negative and two positives. Here's the negative. Do not fear. Don't do that. Don't fear. But here's what I want you to do, he says. I want you to stand, and I want you to see. I want you to stand up, and I want you to watch God. You know, these two things can be a game changer in your life. When you find yourself backed into a corner, stand and watch God. Stand and see. Maybe you're done, but God's not. Maybe you've run out of ideas, but God hasn't. Maybe you're tired and weary, but God is almighty. So stand and see the salvation of the Lord. And then Moses said, the Lord will fight for you. He will. He'll fight for you. While you, keep silent. Think of that. The Lord will fight for you while you keep silent. Stop complaining. Stop arguing. Stop criticizing. Just shh. Be quiet. Be quiet. And watch God. You know, it's like watching a guy on a tightrope. Shh. Just watching him walk across the wire. You're amazed at what he can do. High above the Grand Canyon or the skyscrapers, right? So just watch God. And you know the rest of the story. God parted the sea. The Israelites crossed over. Then when they were done, the Egyptians went in and God brought the water back. And they all drowned. God did what he told Moses he would do. So, here's a story, 6,000 years ago. But what does it mean to us? How do we take something that's from a whole nother time zone, thousands of years ago, and make it meaningful for us? What I think we do is we take the principle of what went on there. And it's not the historical principle, it's a spiritual principle. That God will make a way when there seems to be no way. He works in ways we cannot see. He will make a way for me. We have to see God that way. Now, does that mean God gives us everything we want? No, of course not. Doesn't mean that. But it means that God is there with you. And God is there for you. Okay? And whatever he does, it will be the right thing. You know, let's say I'm backed into a corner and here's what I want, but God does something different. It's still the right thing because God did it. Okay? God can't do the wrong thing because he's righteous and he's pure and he's holy. He can only do the right thing. So, as we watch him working in our lives, and I know this is difficult, it's not easy to always be pleased with what God allows in our life. You know, he allows things, sickness and divorce and accidents and unemployment, and so many things happen to us. It's true. And we feel trapped. But when God moves, just know this, he's making the right moves. It might not be according to our liking. Yeah, in this particular instance, he delivered them. Fine, he delivered them. Because he had a purpose for that. He was bringing them into the promised land. He was bringing them home. Because the Messiah had to be born there. It was prophesied that Jesus would come from the promised land. So he had to get them there. Because he has a plan and a purpose. But if his plan and purpose is different, then we have to maybe expect something different. And not always get what we're hoping for. Or even what we're praying for. You know, a lot of people don't get what they're praying for. But as long as you've got God, and that might sound hyper-spiritual, but it's true. As long as you've got God. So stand strong. Be quiet. And watch God deliver. That's what Moses said to them. He said, this is all you have to do. God will do the rest. Okay? Try to do these three things, and then let God go to work for you. Stand strong, be quiet, and watch. Watch God deliver. Why? Because God will make a way when there seems to be no way. Right? I mean, that's when he does his best work. When it's an impossible situation. Where were these people going to go? They couldn't climb the mountains on the sides. They couldn't swim the sea. They couldn't fight the Egyptians. They were stuck. So all they could do was stand strong and be quiet and watch God deliver. And you know what? He did. And he worked in a way no one expected. Look at the water. What? How's that happening? Look at the ground where the water was. It's all dry. Come on, let's go. Hey, run across. And then the last guy gets across. Wow, look at the water. It's coming back. And it comes back and it drowns the enemies of God. See, the enemies of God will never know victory. They'll never know victory. That's why we have boldness in our walk with God. And we have confidence. We have affirmation. Because no one can stand against God. No thing, no one, even the devil himself, the mightiest of all the angels, he'll be cast into the abyss and then thrown into the lake of fire. Will he be there forever and ever? Yes, sometimes it looks like the enemies of God are winning, but it's always temporary. They might win a battle here and there, but of course, they're going to lose the war, because the war belongs to God. You know, the story of Moses, it's good if you can take some time and read through the Exodus. Moses was quite a man, quite a leader, and we can learn some incredible things from his leadership, and some things he did wrong, a lot of things he did right as well. Next time we're going to talk about manna, the manna that fell from heaven. Okay? We'll check that out next time. Don't forget the Hope Club. Go to newhoperadio.live, click the menu bar. Can you send off $3 a week to support our program? We will send you an email, devotional, Monday through Friday. Draw you closer to God, get you started off in the morning with God. You'll get there. It'll be in your email box like 5:30 in the morning. You can listen, and then you're off for the day. Okay? All right. Thanks for coming along. We'll see you next time.